How double hits in sword fighting are fatal. So in real sword fighting, when both fighters hit each other, no one wins. You don't win, you both die. Maybe not instantly, but eventually you'll succumb to your wounds. And this is why double hits are one of the most dangerous habits that beginners bring to sword fighting practice. Hi, I'm Michael Kozin, and I have over 2 years of experience and constant training, specifically with longsword in historical European martial arts, which is a real practice of sword fighting against another opponent. I also have tournament experience. I went to Turnhout 2025 and Katzenschlag 2025, so I know very clearly how hard it is to fight with precision, with focus, and most of all with intention. And this is why I cared so much about teaching the real sword fighting, not just fantasy from gaming and movies. I just know the value that it brings to my life and to the life of my students. So, about the doubles, I've hit someone and they've hit me back, and I've seen countless times how it happens to others. And I really understand what doubles mean, not how they score in a tournament. In the description there's also my free community about sword fighting for complete beginners, where I teach guys about how to start sword fighting safely and correctly. And I've helped more than 10 guys to do it right, so check out the link in the description. So coming back to the topic of this video, I lied to you because the real topic, the real title of this video should be how to minimize doubles in sword fighting without becoming ultra passive. So stick to the end of the video where I'll teach you specific action steps that you can take to prevent doubles as much as you can. But first, let me explain for you what double actually is in sword fighting. So my first point is, what is a double? To define it simply, a double is when both fighters hit each other within a fraction of a second. So they both land a hit in the same exchange. And it's very often in the beginner training. But you'll be surprised because it's still prominent in advanced levels as well. So I want to tackle why beginners think it's completely okay. The beginners often think in the lines of, at least I've hit him back, at least I've scored, or it's a draw. This is a very dangerous mindset. In a real unarmored sword fighting combat, so with real sharpened swords without armor, any attack which lands, even if it's small, even if it's insignificant, can end the fight outright. It can incapacitate you very quickly. In real sword fighting, there are no draws. Both of you and your opponent bleed out after getting hit. Also, you have to get into account factors like pain, shock, the wound disease that you can get, and the mechanical loss of a teared up muscles that where you get hit, right? Even a slight cut to the hand or arm can end your fight. Double in a real sword fighting scenario means a failure of defense on both sides of the conflict. It's not bravery and it's also not aggression, it's a lack of control over the fight. My next point is the reality check of unarmored sword fighting. So let's be completely honest. In real life sword fighting, there is no health bar, there is no respawn, and there is no trading hits with your opponents. There is no such thing as a hyper armor in real life. I'll explain to you with a simple examples. Imagine that you're thrusting your opponent to the chest, but he at the same time cuts your arm. You could kill your opponent outright because you've hit his critical area, which is his torso, his chest, but you'll bleed out within a minute from a deep cut to your arm. Or imagine even simpler thing. You're cutting to his leg and he's cutting to your hand at the same time. And that's when both of you get incapacitated, because it takes a little small cut to some part of your area to destroy 80% of your focus. So you're completely incapacitated after just one cut. None of us humans are made to tank the hits. Of course, if you have plate armor, then of course it's a lot easier to do it. But still, if you're fighting in plate armor, you still want to parry and block an incoming attack. You're not charging into battle blindly, without thinking how to attack your opponent. In a safe way, I mean. So the goal of real sword fighting is to not hit your opponent. It's to hit without getting hit. Next thing is why doubles happen at all and the common causes of them. So in this point, I'll just clear it out in short terms. First of all, they happen because you overcommit to each of your attack. So you charge in blindly, and it's commonly a byproduct of your bad measurement, so your bad distance management. Second is ignoring your defense once you start to strike. Third, which I already tackled, is bad distance control, which is a bread and butter of the actual safe sword fighting. Next is poor timing and poor tempo awareness. Also, it's because of a tunnel vision on only hitting your opponent. And the last thing is treating sparring like a game, not a fight, not a real combat. So to be short, most doubles don't come from the bad technique, which I'll tackle later, but they come from the bad mindset and most of all, ego. My next point is why HEMA cares about doubles so much and why you should. The HEMA philosophy comes from the historical sources, which emphasize that when you strike, you're covering the lines. Also, they emphasize the strong structure of each of your action, could be offensive and defensive ones. They emphasize controlling the center line to your opponent to swiftly change between your defense and attacks. And also they emphasize striking your opponents safely, even if you're completely sure that it will not hit him. So HEMA, in other words, is not about trading blows. It's about controlling the pressure of the fight and ending it on your terms. If you allow doubles in your sparring, then you're training yourself to die. My next point is about gaming mindset versus reality. We all know that games reward our aggression inside of the game. They reward us with a new shiny loot and with experience, right? And they show us that sometimes trading damage with your enemy NPC is completely normal, or against another real player. The line which comes like, as long as I hit him, it's fine, is not the right way to go about it. And this mindset, to be honest with you, it sneaks into sparring as well. I've seen it countless times happening. When you start to spar against someone in real sword fighting, you start to notice that it punishes this mindset instantly. Reality doesn't care about your KD ratio on a scoreboard. It's not about that. So in short, sword fighting exposes your bad habits that gaming lets you get away with. What to aim for instead in a positive frame. So I'll give you straight direction to combat your huge fear of doubling. So first of all, prioritize your defense over offensive actions, but not to the point when you become completely passive, when you rely only on defense. Second to point out is that you have to control the distance before you attack. Remember to prepare each of your attack with your footwork, with your vehicle which supports each of your action. So the next thing is that you have to make sure to strike when you're covered. That means that you don't attack straight away if you know that your opponent will be faster, but you cover the line with some kind of parry to then maybe riposte or attack yourself in a single tempo counter, which is of course way harder to pull off, but you have to be sure that it will defend you also. And one of the most important things, which is the next point, that you have to accept not hitting your opponent if it means that you stay safe. So it's not all about just going for the hit most of the, like, all of the time. No. So this means that you have to learn how to disengage from your opponent if you feel that you can't win in the specific exchange, which means that you have to retreat from your opponent with your footwork also. If you get into an exchange of blows with your opponent, you have to be sure that you don't get hit when you're exchanging blows. It's not about hitting your opponent and getting hit instantly. It's about knowing that when you initiate, for example, some kind of attack, that you always have a plan B in the back of your mind to also be prepared to defend yourself, because your initial attack doesn't need to hit your opponent. It could be even parried, or it could be defended by distance from your opponent. But you always make sure that after your attack, after your strike, you're already prepared to defend from the riposte of your opponent. To simplify it for you, the clean exchange which doesn't end the fight is way more better than a flashy hit every time. Next point is how this changes your training. Before we go into the practical action steps, we have to ingrain specific concepts for you for now. First things first, you have to stop celebrating doubles as something cool. It's a mistake both you and your opponent should avoid. And in my honest opinion, a double is a far worse ending for the exchange than someone losing to the other opponent. So you have to treat them as mistakes. And also you have to ask yourself, why did I get hit? So you have to focus on the biggest mistake which leads to you doubling with your opponent. It could be your bad footwork, it could be your bad distance management, or it could be your stiff blade work. So in short, you have to focus on the one biggest thing which holds you back, not on all of them at once, which lead to you doubling, right? Also, there is one specific thing that you can take action if you're sparring already with someone. If both of you and your sparring partner end each exchange with a double, or most of the times, then you just hold your hand or say to him out loud, just go to him and speak to him, that you should slow down the exchange, which means that you can just like tell him like, yo bro, we should probably do more of a technical sparring than a full tryhard one. Your goal isn't to hit your opponent and to end the fight. The goal for you is to keep yourself safe. That's the thing that you should celebrate. If you defended from the blow of your opponent, so you didn't get hit, that's the thing you should be striving for, not to hit your opponent back at all times. And the last thing to focus on is your structure and balance, which is your footwork, your vehicle for every of your action. This last point is the most practical one, because I'll explain to you how to actually minimize doubles in your sparring without becoming passive. Now, doubles will still happen, even at the highest levels, they still do. But our goal isn't perfection, it's to minimize these mistakes as much as we can. Of course, without freezing yourself, without becoming passive in the first place. Action step number 1 is that you have to commit, but with a plan. The main idea is that doubles turn each fighter into a passive defender. It turns them into statues, and pure defense invites pressure from your opponent. So you must also attack back to control the fight and pressure your opponent back. So the key clarification that I have to make is that avoiding doubles doesn't mean that you become defensive. It means attacking with responsibility. So what to do? You have to commit to your attack without overextending. So that's a byproduct of bad distance management. Also, the second thing, that you have to use footwork to enter safely or prepare your offensive action and defensive one as well. The first thing is that you have to extend your arms plus your blade to threaten your opponent for real with the strike. Of course, with the tip portion of the sword. And the fourth thing is that you have to pressure your opponent back without just slightly poking at him and hoping. Things to avoid is that you don't overextend blindly without any structure and without any plan B, so without any defense in mind, and swing at your opponent just to get a hit. If you don't pressure your opponent back, then you give him the control over the whole fight. And that's how doubles happen. Action step number 2 is that you attack and be prepared to defend. This is a huge one. The core principle of this is that the beginners lead to doubles because they always renew their attacks right away after the first initial one. What usually happens? So let's imagine you're me. You're attacking your opponent with a strike. Your opponent defends with a parry or by distance. Your opponent riposts, but you ignore his riposte and attack either way. And this leads to a double. But the more better approach to it is that you attack, your opponent defends with some kind of action, could be even a parry, and you're recovering your sword to your chest right away to be prepared for a parry yourself. Then you parry your opponent's blade, and then you continue with your own riposte. So your first attack creates a problem for your opponent, but your recovery decides whether you live or die. I also want to tackle top 2 ways to a double. The first, most common, most often way to a double, top number 1, is when both fighters attack at the same time without having a plan B of defending themselves after the strike, and both of them just get hit. Of course, they attack without no attempt of closing the center line and covering some side from the blade of the opponent. And of course, this all comes from just ego and raw speed. That's not bravery, that's just two people hoping that the other opponent dies faster. And the second easiest way, which I've already shown you, is that you attack, your opponent defends and riposts, but you ignore his riposte and you renew the attack anyway. And this is where most doubles happen, and beginners don't even realize it. Coming back to the core message of this topic is that every attack must include its defense as well. You're not just throwing a strike at your opponent, but you're managing the whole exchange and you end it on your own terms. So you attack, you recover, you defend, and you continue with your exchange. But if you feel overwhelmed, then you retreat. So you disengage from the exchange. So sword fighting isn't about hitting first. It's about staying safe and controlling the exchange your way, or disengaging from it if you feel threatened. Most beginners, most guys never learn about doubles because no one explains it to them. Like they think most often than not is that sword fighting is about pure aggression, that you have to go first to win. That's wrong. And then they get frustrated, they're angry, and they just quit training this art. And that's why my mission is to teach real sword fighting, make people safer, sharper, and more capable with a real life skill, which is sword fighting. It's cool as hell, especially gamers, because I was one a few years ago, and I know how fast we learn if we just put our mind to it. That's why I created my free Start Sword Fighting community, where I just help newcomers and beginners to start safely, teach them basic knowledge, basic things. I tell them what to get as the beginner and not to waste money on the HEMA gear that they don't need at the beginning whatsoever, and how to actually spar and train safely without feeling overwhelmed. So yeah, that's my life mission, to help people just around the world of discovering a real fun and a real cool martial art that no one really talks about. I don't even know anyone in my own life, not counting my, of course, club mates, that know how to sword fight. I'm the only one in my community. So that's a fun thing to do in your life and to actually learn and get good at. That even saved me from my gaming addiction, but that's besides the point. So yeah. And remember, always take the initiative.